Hello and welcome to this episode of Wise Human. Today I have with me Trudy Ludwig, and I'm so honored to have her here. Thank you for joining, Trudy.
Thank you for having me.
A couple years ago, when Wise Human first started, Trudy reached out to me about her story and wanting to share her story of resilience and overcoming adversity in her childhood. So I'm so happy that we've circled back around and we have the chance to chat today. Let's just start off telling me a little bit about your childhood. Who was Trudy as a child?
I am a twin. I was born in June, and I had a brother that was 14 months older than me. So the three of us were very close in age, and my mom used to always joke about the fact that when one of us would cry, all of us would cry because we were basically the same age. So we had a lot of that going on, and I remember being very young, and it was just our little family, like the three kids and my mom. And then all of a sudden, this guy came into our life that we used to call the tickle monster. We didn't know who he was, but he was showing up, coming to our house. And I was like three-ish, I think, when he first came into our family. And then in that summer in June, when we were celebrating our birthday, he came with a like Sesame Street cake for us turning 4 and brought that to me and my sister. And we were both very excited. We had this new guy in our life. And I don't remember exactly when it all happened, but then he became like our dad. And we called him dad instead of just Tickle Monster, which is how we first identified him. And then shortly after my mom met him, we used to live in up north Michigan, up north as they call it there, and we moved to his family farm, which was downstate in a really little rural area in Otter Lake, Michigan. So we moved down there, and I think they got married after we moved. I don't know exactly, but they moved down there. We became part of the family, and almost immediately started working on the farm because it was a dairy farm, a working dairy farm, and they need all the help they can get to keep the business running. My brother was 5 at the time that we moved down there, so he was able to do a little bit more, and he would do some chores like just sweeping, trying to sweep, trying to do things to be helpful as kids do. And they started to realize that they could rely on us, so they started having us do more chores. So all of us started working basically when we moved to the farm at the ages of 4 and 5. And then we used to have to take turns because they started to rely on us more. As like within a year of being there, we had to do a lot more things, and we didn't get to do like childhood things. We had to stop everything we were doing like in work all the time, and we had to take turns rotating who could watch cartoons in the morning. Like Saturday cartoons was a big thing when we were growing up back in the 90s. It was a big thing. And so we were very excited to do that, but we didn't get to watch them all the time. So we would always miss them, and it was sad. And then around 8, I want to say around, it was 8 when I turned 8. We are like in my 8th year of life. My mom came to us and asked all of us kids if we wanted to officially become adopted to have the last name of our dad, the only dad we've ever known. So we're like, yeah, that'd be awesome. I would love to be a Ludwig and actually feel like I am part of this family. So we did all the paperwork. They went and talked to our school before we started. It must have been maybe 7th, 8th, because it was starting 8th grade. So we were starting into the 8th grade, and they went and told them that we were going to be a different name now. So they had to be aware of that. So we did that. And then about a year after the name change, I remember sitting on the couch in the morning getting ready to go do chores before we would have to go to school. And all of a sudden, I was my new dad took my hand and placed it on top of his penis. And I was like, what is happening? Because I was a kid, and I was like, is this normal? Is this a thing we do? So it was just a weird feeling. And since then, like since that time, things progressed and there was actual sexual abuse, like more intense sexual abuse that happened during that, more touching and more awkward times. And about a year after that started, I finally said something to Tracy, who is my twin sister, and was like, "Hey, is this happening to you? Is anything, or is it just me? Am I like, is it because I'm daddy's little girl? He's doing things, or what's going on?" And she's like, "No, he's touching me too. She's like, what do we do?" And I'm like, I guess nothing. Just let it go and see what happens. And so we didn't say anything for a long time. We just continued to let this happen. Meanwhile, that's happening, and we're working all the time on the farm as well. And there's just a whole lot going on with like life, and everything's just escalating more, and we're growing up in a faster rate than I think most kids did, because we had to learn all of these things so young. And then like once we were on once the abuse started, we were just going through puberty and acting out. So other things would start to annoy us too, just like in general. We fought more, so then we also would get punished and have to do like weird punishment things. They would make us hold hands, like me and my siblings, like and sit on a bale of straw and like things. And then we lived on the farm with my stepdad's parents. Like they lived in the house next to us, so they also worked on the farm. And that the old man who was our considered our grandpa was always very mean to us, and would, like, my brother once had handprints around his neck from where he was strangled, and I was hit in the back of my head like against a cement wall by him. And like we had all these random things, and I always wonder, I'm like, did the school see this? Did anybody question the things that were happening? I was like, I'm sure that there was like evidence that there was some kind of abuse happening in this house. And if they couldn't see the physical, why would we tell about the sexual that nobody could really see? So we just continued to keep quiet about all of this. And it wasn't until I was 14, 15, like that age range, that um, my my dad threatened to kill our family dog. That was like our dog. That I was like, I can't keep quiet anymore. So after he threatened, I told my brother about it, and he was like, "Wait, what?" He's like, "No, no, he couldn't be doing that," because it's like we tried to tell him about a year prior, and he didn't believe us and completely brushed it off and said we must have been sleeping and dreaming when that happened, like any kind of touching of any kind. And we're like, okay, I guess so. So when I told my brother this time, he was like, wait, this is the second time you're telling me, and you seem very serious. He's like, what do we do? So we went and looked in the back of a phone book and found a number, and all they could tell us was, do you have a trusted adult that you can tell? And we had none of those in our lives, at least at our home, because they were all kind of just working against us and always wanting to hurt us, it seemed. And so we're like, it's not a safe place for us. We have nobody. And then we thought about one of our school counselors that was super nice and understanding and we could talk to. But then I panicked and told Fred, my brother, I was like, please don't say anything. It's fine. I can live like this forever. Not a big deal. We don't need to tell anybody that I'm being abused, because it's already been happening for like 5, 6 years at this point. Cool, let it go. And he did for about 2 days. And then he went to the school counselor and he was like, no, we need to fix this. But he didn't say any names. He was just like, so I know of an abuse situation. And the counselor was like, you have to tell me the names. This is something that I need to know because we need to intervene. And he was like, well, I promised I wouldn't, but it's twins. I'm like, that's very obvious who it is. So the counselor, then it was happened to be the year that me and Tracy had every single class together. And we would, like, in sixth grade, we would switch classes. So he came down during our last class and pulled Tracy out because he saw Fred vaguely saw something maybe happen to Tracy. So that was like the evidence that, so he pulled her first. And I'm sitting there just like immediately all shaky and just like, oh God, it's coming, it's coming. And within 5 minutes, he came back and pulled me out to go up there too. And then when I went into the office, it was very intimidating because there were two police officers in there. One was a man, one was a woman, and they were trying to talk. And although there was a lot more that happened to me with the sexual abuse, I sat mute. I just stared at my feet. I would kind of be like, yeah, yeah, confirm whatever Tracy said because I was terrified to actually talk. So Tracy was talking then and did that. And we missed our bus home. We were terrified. We're like, now what do we do? We're stuck here and we don't have anything. We're going to put into Child Protective Services. So we were very scared. And they were like, we have to call your mom. I'm like, great. She's not going to believe us. And she did, or said she did in that moment. They called her. She came to the school. Then the police went and confronted him and he didn't deny it. So they're like, that's a sure sign that it really happened. And so they collected stuff for us or they came with us. I don't remember exactly. We collected things and went to our grandparents' house to stay for the weekend. And then everything in our life like completely changed from that day.
Did your mom had no idea anything was going on?
Uh, well, so that's as I get older and evaluate things, I think she did to some degree, quite a bit actually, because if we were ever having a moment of like an argument or anything, she would be, or if they were in an argument, my parents, she would be like, just go sleep with the girls, not sleep on the couch, sleep with the girls. I mean, me and Tracy shared a bed. So then it was like the three of us in a bed together. And we were like trying to like suck into the wall so we didn't have to get touched by him. But it was just like, what mother would ever send somebody to go sleep with their daughters instead? Like, even if he wasn't a creep, you wouldn't want to do that. Like, that's just not a normal mindset. And
Mm.
then when I would have to ask for permission to like ride our bikes into town, she wouldn't give me an answer. She's like, go ask your father. And he would close the door to their bedroom with me. And I was in there for like 20, 30 minutes for a simple yes or no. So I feel like there had to have been some knowledge of this. And like the more I look at it, the more it's like she kind of enjoyed it to some degree as well, because she's pretty much a monster too.
So everything kind of comes out and you're moved away from the farm. What happens next?
So we didn't actually have to move away, and like we didn't have a place to move until like several months of of this. So we're living on the farm for a while, and we got real. So it came out in March, and then Father's Day, my mom said she was going to divorce our dad. I'm like, cool, that's awesome. Do that because that shows you're on our side. And she gave him like served him papers on that day. And then we heard her talking like a week later. They weren't getting a divorce, but we're going through court process because we have to because it went to the school. And so we're learning and talking with like our lawyers, defense lawyers, whatever, people to help us figure out like how we're going to be on the stand, how we're going to present this, how we're going to be able to get through this because we were terrified children that didn't know anything, and getting like up to speed on all of that. Like had no idea what to do with the law, and also doing therapy because we had to. It was like court mandated, school mandated, whatever therapy that we had to do. So it was like family therapy and then individual therapy that we were doing. And one of the things that I remember, he ended up being held, like they had to sell the farm and sell all the animals because he couldn't work anymore. And he was being held in jail prior to our court date. And one of our last therapy sessions, we went, like, it was our last therapy with like the family. We had to go to the court or to the jail or wherever he was at and have a session with him where she told him to apologize to us. And that was one of the weirdest experiences. And thinking of it now, I was like, they would never do that. Why did we have to go in front of our perpetrator like that? And we were forced for him to hug us. And I was like, why? Why are we doing this? Why are you putting us back into this? And that was, I think, my mom was leading that and having us do this because she never ended up divorcing him. They're still married to this day. And she has lost all of her kids because she cared about him more than us. So it became this whole thing. Like, even we ended up kind of going to court. We didn't actually go on trial because his lawyers came to us with an offer, like a plea bargain offer, to have a lesser sentence if we would just agree to like a lesser count of child sexual abuse. And so we were scared. We didn't know. Our mom was advocating for it. Our lawyers were like, I don't know, this seems like not a great deal for them. Like, he's going to get off easier. But my mom convinced them and us that that was the best thing to do. However, I still, because I was daddy's little girl and favorite, I still had to go and share all of it with his lawyer because they wanted to know if I was ready to actually say all of these things on the stand. And he was like, oh, she'll do it. And so that's when they took the plea bargain, was after his lawyer already talked to me. So it's like, I could have went on the stand and had a better outcome, probably, because he was sentenced in October of our sophomore year, and he was out of prison in time to he could have came to our high school graduation if we allowed him. Like, my mom asked, like, can he come? And I was like, what? No. Why would we want him there? So yeah, it was like so messed up.
Yeah, that's rough. I'm sorry that that's what you dealt with. How did that feel that like your mom wasn't supporting you? Or like in the moment maybe did it feel like she was supporting you and just in hindsight now you're realizing that she wasn't?
Yeah. So like in the moment, it really felt like she cared about us and she was doing the things. But the more I've learned about who she is and the way that she deals with things, she has a lot of narcissistic personality traits. She probably is a narcissist, don't know that for sure. But the way that she handles things, it seems it was always for to make her look good and didn't care about what she did to the others around her, because she could always spin anything and everybody would always believe that she was fantastic. Never mind that she lost a lot of people in her life and has very minimal people that are like actually people that talk to her. It's very weird.
How did your childhood affect your adulthood? Like as you were growing up and, leaving the home and out on your own?
I mean, I made a lot of dumb choices. Like, I didn't get into like drugs and alcohol or anything, like didn't get all crazy with that, but I made dumb choices with like relationships and who I was with. I was married for 9 years with a guy for 10 years that was basically my mom in male form. Like, he did a lot of manipulation and things to make me do whatever he wanted and to like get his way on things. And so like looking back at that, I can see that correlation too. I was like, oh, I just married my mom. Weird. But it's just like we're trained, like you go with what you know. And so I did that. And I just feel like I've talked a lot about with other people that have experienced abuse, like it's been so hard to just get ahead in life and to feel like I've achieved anything. I constantly feel like I'm behind. Like, everything that I do, I'm like, I should be making more, I should be doing more, I should be more advanced, all of these things. And I still have those thoughts, but lesser now that I'm like, it is what it is. I am who I am. I made it to this point in life and I overcame a lot of things. And when you hear it all like laid out, like when I actually say it all and realize all the things that I had to go through, I realize that I have done a lot more with my life than I may have initially thought, or other people that have been in my shoes may not have come out as good as me on the right side of things. It could be like going down like a path of like drugs or something. So overall, I think it has been good. It's just been, I think the biggest toll on me has been my mental health and trying to like figure out how to deal with things, how to talk to people, how to have relationships without going into my fight or flight mode, protective mode that like I was trained when I was a kid. Because that's the biggest thing. Everything always feels like I need to flee. If anything's good in my life, if they say one, like my current boyfriend, if he says one thing that is like kind of against me or maybe like seen as like mean or whatever, I'm just like, nope, he's done. I'm just gonna call it quits, and then I become self-sabotaging, trying to like break it off without even realizing it. And so I'm like, oh, why am I doing that? So it's just, and I have a therapist who has helped me to identify that that's my childhood trauma coming in, trying to protect myself. But she's like, you're safe. You don't need to do that anymore. So it's real hard to wrap your brain around those things and to like not go into that.
Can you share more about your journey of going through therapy and healing and shifting some of those beliefs that were kind of forced into you by your circumstance?
Yeah. So the I feel like some of the things that were the most helpful is when I was in college, I kept in my story and didn't share anything about me until college, and like not even fully in college. But once I started to share, it became this thing of like, I want everybody to know that they're not alone, because I know that this kind of abuse happens so frequently and it's just not talked about and it's swept under the rug and it becomes nothing. Like nobody knows about it and it doesn't go anywhere. So when I was in college, I found an organization and I went to them first for like the free therapy. And then it wasn't for me because it was like group therapy. And my story was way more intense than everybody else. And it like, so we're going around the table sharing, and I like all of this. And they're like, oh no, you need one-on-one therapy. This is not the venue for this. So they started to help me. And then I saw the work that they were doing and helping women and children and doing things to get out of situations and move forward. So I started to become more involved and volunteer with them. And so I started volunteering back in like 2004, 2005, and I've volunteered with an organization similar to that organization or with that organization since that time, because I feel like it's a good way to get your story out and to help others. It's just to share and talk about things, and just if you can share your voice, you can be a voice for others. So that's been one of my biggest things, is to just, because my sister has experienced this, but she's like, it's not as bad what happened to me, so it doesn't matter. I'm like, all trauma is trauma, and you've experienced something, feel free, share your story, go out there and share it. But she doesn't like to use her voice in that way now, which is weird, since she was the one that talked to the police officers the first time and I was the mute. So I'm like, we've shifted roles in that way. But I'm like trying to get people to understand that it does happen frequently and that they're not alone, and you have a place in the world to share your story, and people will listen, and there is help out there. And like doing stuff with organizations that I help and volunteer with has given me a lot of joy and has shifted the way that I see things too, because I see that there's people in the community that are helping and to do things. And then I think one of the biggest things that I've done for my own healing outside of like going to my therapy was this retreat that I found. It's called the it was called the Haven Retreat. I think it might still be the Haven Retreat. I forget the organization. If you want information, I can get it for you. But it's this retreat for childhood sexual abuse survivors, female ones. I know that there's males, but it's all for females at this time. And it's a retreat in Utah where you go for 4 days with a group of people that have been abused when they were children. They have to have been abused before 18, and then they can go to this retreat, and you get put into groups of, there's like 3 different groups of like 8 people. So there's 24-ish total people at this retreat, and you just do like healing exercises. We did the little Japanese thing where you break a dish and then you put it back together with the golden stuff. So it's like you're healing yourself. We did that there, and we did some other things, and we had smaller groups therapy and other things there. But like did a lot of great work there. You're like off the grid. You don't have access to social media to talk to people, and you go and you just get to be surrounded by other people. And I think it was just eye-opening to see how far I had come in my journey at that point. I went in 2019, so I was 35, 30, I don't know, I can't math, but however old I was in my 30s when I went. And so I thought that I still needed to do so much more because like I'm so behind in life. And it helped me to see that the things that I deal with, like I have anxiety, depression, suicidal thoughts, all of these things, that I'm not alone in those things. These people have it, and maybe more. And like there's a lot of older people that were there that were struggling. And I think it's good that we're talking about it now, because then these older people can see like, oh, we can share this and we can heal once we share. And that's my biggest thing, is talking about it because it heals you, not because you necessarily want to demean whoever did this to you or talk down to whoever the offenders are. You just want to heal yourself. And if you get it out of you, I think that's healing. At least that has been my experience.
Yeah, I think sharing in a safe place, I think that's important. As long as it's in a safe place, that's
Yes.
how we do heal, being seen and accepted in all of it.
Yeah.
That retreat sounds amazing. Yeah, if you wanna get the details, I can share it in the show notes if anybody's.
I think there's a also an Atlanta location now to make it a little bit easier for people to get to. But the Utah one is beautiful.
Mhm.
Beautiful.
Utah's amazing.
Yeah.
So as an adult, you said you deal with depression and anxiety and suicidal thoughts. Can you share more about that? I know suicide is something that's like a cause that's close to your heart. So maybe you could share a little bit about that.
Yes. So suicidal thoughts have always kind of been there. And when I was a kid, it's I tell Tracy this all the time, that, and I kind of hate that I do this to her because I know that that like puts pressure on her to be good. But I don't know that I would be here today if it wasn't for Tracy. And I tell her all the time, I was like, you saved me without even knowing it. Because we're twins. And I'm like, I don't know how I could live in a world without my twin. And was like, why am I going to do this to myself? And then she's going to have to live in a world without a twin. So it's like, I can't do that to her. So I've had a lot of thoughts of that. And it started very young when I was like, I want to say probably 15. Like, I didn't make official attempts. I made plans and did like kid, like, I think it was more a cry for help versus an actual attempt where I would like kind of cut my wrist, but like didn't actually go deep enough to do anything. And then I used to climb our silos on the farm and like threatened to jump off of them. I don't know if I would actually die from that, so that would probably just maim me. So there's all these things that I thought about doing that I'm like, probably not the most ideal thing to do with life, but it was anytime I would get to that like edge of like, I'm gonna do this, I would just think, how will Tracy survive without me? So I never went through with it because I'm 17 minutes older than her, so I am her big sister and I am her protector too. Like that's how I think of things, even though 17 minutes, not like 17 years or even 7 years or 1 year, whatever. It just feels like I am older, I must protect her. And it was the pandemic really messed with my head and really made all of these thoughts and all of these mental health things come to light, because I had gotten a divorce in 2019. It was final. And then that was my first time moving out on my own, living in my own apartment. And shortly after I'm on my own living here, but I'm surrounded, like I have a network of friends, I can do things. The world shuts down and they tell you you can't be around anyone. So I'm living in a house by myself with no one and just my thoughts. So there was a lot of like diving in and trying to figure things out. I still had therapy sessions with my therapist, like virtually. She was able to do that. So at least I wasn't completely alone with those kind of thoughts, which was nice. But there was there was a time in, I'm gonna say, I don't remember when exactly it was, I think April 2020, that I drove to a state park with the intent of killing myself. And try not to like cry. And I went to this park and it was um I was walking around looking for things, Googling while I'm walking the best way to kill myself, like kill myself because I didn't think I had anywhere in my house that I could do it. So my plan was to drown myself because I heard or I read that that was an easy, quickish way, especially if you're not a good swimmer. So I looked up all of this information far too much, like Googling things like this is not good. And like a suicide helpline would always come up, but I never called it at that point. Um, but at that park, what saved me was once again Tracy without even realizing it, because I made like in the pandemic, everybody was also making a lot of dumb things, different foods and things, trying new recipes. So I made these dumb banana cookie things. They were like no bake banana cookies that looked like cat vomit or something. Like they did not look appetizing at all. So I made these cookies and sent like a snap to Tracy and showed her, and she's like, "Ew, those look gross. You'll have to let me know how they were or how they are." That was the snack that I took with me that day that I went to the park, and I ate them. They were gross, but I realized that if I died that day, Tracy would never know how gross they were. So I was like, I can't do this because Tracy needs to know just how bad these were. So then I went home and I was still having these bad thoughts. And I finally called the suicide hotline. I was put on hold because I think everybody was in crisis at that time. So I didn't get anywhere, but I did call, or I did do the text thing. There's a text line too that goes with the suicide hotline. So I texted and it was just enough to keep me going to like not do anything. And then I work in a health institution, so we're surrounded by a lot of doctors and things that can help. So I just reached out to my supervisor, and like the next day I was in with an actual psychiatrist, somebody that was a little bit elevated than my therapist, because she knew, like she's like, you're doing okay, but she's like, I think you could use a little bit more help at this time just to see what they have. And turns out I was something that I just needed to work through. And I talking with him, he's like, this is a place you've been before. It's a dark place. You can come out of it. You did it in your childhood. He's like, if it gets bad and these thoughts become too much, come back to me and I can help you. So it was reassuring to know that it wasn't so crazy and I wasn't that messed up with my thoughts compared to like others that he had seen, because he works in psychiatry. He had seen a lot of things. So I started to get better and actually then tell people that I was having these thoughts so that I didn't just sit. It's the same with the sexual abuse, but suicidal thoughts, I think, are scarier to share. Like I can share about my sexual abuse now, no problem. Got it. Suicidal thoughts are still more taboo, and suicide in general is still considered the worst thing to do. I feel like in regards to like mental health, there's a lot of talk about that and not a lot of work. I mean, work's being done on it and you're trying to change that mindset, but it's one of those things that people still say committed suicide, and I hate that. And so I've been trying, like I didn't know that that was not how you say it until September 2021 when my brother died by suicide, and it became very aware and very top of mind of, oh shit, this happened. how do I even deal with this? Now I don't have my brother who has always been my protector. Like, ugh. So yeah, it's just been, it's suicide is close to me. And it's, when I got the news of my brother, it was one of those things that was really shocking because I started to open up to my family, to everybody that I know, to let them know that I was struggling with suicidal thoughts and having this and whatever. And he never mentioned anything. And I would call him probably weekly or at least monthly for a while during the pandemic because we talked a lot more because we didn't have anything else. And we never got into anything serious. And so it was very shocking for me to get that news.
That's a lot. I thank you for having the courage to share it, especially when it's still so raw. And I know it was really hard to lose your brother and to have these thoughts yourself. And I know that you've turned that into you've created a positive out of that in creating support for others. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Yes. So shortly after, it doing things for others has been my thing since I discovered like charity work and helping nonprofits and doing stuff like that. So basically, right after, like anytime the word suicide comes up on any kind of search thing, AFSP, which is American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, is top. It comes up and it's talking about things, and they do walks and they do advocacy and all these different things across the nation. And it's because of them that there is now a new suicide hotline. The 988 number is because of AFSP. They worked really hard to get that number and to get funding to make that happen. So I started reaching out to them. And there was a walk down here in Houston where I live in November. So about 2 months after my brother's passing. And I was like, I want to do this walk and I want to get, obviously, the people down here, I'm from Michigan. So everybody that knew Fred, or most of the people that knew Fred, are up in Michigan. But I wanted to have a big group in Houston to just show support for me and to let Fred, like, just to know that like he meant something. So we wanted a team name and we needed something that would be like catchy and like just like get people interested in what is this. And so I came up with Fred's Fighters, and it's kind of stuck. We've taken off. And shortly after creating the team, Fred's Fighters, I also created an Instagram page where I share things daily, mostly in the stories, but I share things daily about suicide prevention, and just positive affirmations and different things to help others. I just want to try and be a positive light in the world of like social media where everything seems very comparison and I'm less than type of vibe. There's a lot of that going on social media. So I try to put out positive stuff through the Fred's Fighters page and try and get people to show up anytime there's a walk. I try and get people to come and support me. And I have signs that I hold up for Fred's Fighters. And the first year that we did the walk, there were like 50 people that came out, and like none of them knew Fred, but they were all there to show support and to like be a voice for suicide prevention. So it's one of those things that's, again, it's really nice to see and to share your voice in that aspect versus the sexual abuse aspect, which is where I've always shared it before, to see the differences in still very relatable like topics. And I think there's crossover in those, in the fact that a lot of people that are affected by sexual abuse probably consider suicide quite a bit, but it goes unspoken because that's taboo and nobody wants to talk about it. And I think I feel like a part of Fred's reasoning, I don't know fully because he didn't open up to me, but I feel like one of those things. Nobody ever asked Fred during all of the years of abuse and everything how he was feeling about things. If he was okay, like the abuse that he experienced, how did that impact him? And it just, as I got older and I've read more books of like siblings that were a part of a sibling that was abused, their reaction of not having a voice and not being heard and not being cared of, like as important as the abused child, I wonder what kind of toll that took on his life as well. And it sucks. I hate that he ended up going that route, and that because of that, I feel like I've had a lot of like when it happened, I was like, I will never do this. This shows me I will never kill myself, because I don't want to put my family through the kind of pain that I'm experiencing right now. And it was one of those things that I'm like, I can't do this. I will never do this. But as the event becomes more in the past and we're more in the present of like my brain is dealing with current life, I still start to go there to those suicidal thoughts. And especially my 40th was a rough one because Fred didn't make it to 40. So me and Tracy both had a hard time getting to 40. And I had an amazing trip planned. Me and my boyfriend, we went to the UK to hike for like Hadrian's Wall. We were going to do this amazing hike. We had this thing. We did it. But even there, the 2 days leading up to my birthday, we're out in the middle of nowhere. There's nobody around. And like, you get frustrated with whatever's happening. So I stopped talking to my boyfriend and I'm just walking. And my brain goes to, because before the trip, I told myself I wasn't going to make it to 40. Like I was going to kill myself before 40. That was just in my head. For some reason, my brain would not stop those thoughts. And then when I was there, it turned to, I'm in another country. I can't kill myself here because I don't know how my body would get back to my family back in the US. So I'll make it a week. And when I get home, I will drop off my boyfriend and I will go home and I will kill myself. Like that was the thought process in my head for 2 full days. And I was like, I need to stop this. So finally, like I told him, and he was like, why didn't you tell me this? You know that if you talk about it, I can help you. So then it was, I made it to 40. I feel great now. I don't feel like I need to die. So it's one of those positive things now. I was telling a friend, I just need to get to this age and then I think I can get better and I can start to heal in a way that I've made it to the age that Fred never made it to, and I'm okay. So that's where I'm at now.
Yeah. And I imagine sharing with your partner also helped to deepen your relationship because he sounds like
Yes.
a good partner. He's able to show up and be there for you.
Yeah, he's pretty fantastic. I don't know how I got so lucky to have him in my life.
You deserve him. You deserve a happy life, especially like, I mean, everybody does, right? But you've been through a lot, and I'm happy to hear that you're in a good place right now.
Yes. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Tell me one of your favorite memories of Fred.
Some of the best times I think was just when I would call him and the two of us, we during the pandemic, this is when this started, and I don't understand why or how it even came about. We didn't call each other by our names. We would spell out our names. So I would call him and say, hello, FRED. And he would say, hello, TRUDY. And it was just the weirdest thing. I don't know why we said that. And my last birthday voicemail from him still says that. So like I listen to that occasionally. Mm-hmm. It's him like they're all singing this song and then he's just like in the middle of it says TRUDY. And it's just great because it's one of those moments I was like, that's Fred. He's just a weirdo that's always doing things to make people laugh and just the life of the party and like the funnest guy. So yeah, he's great.
Well, we're about to wrap up. We're getting to our time. So I have a few final questions. But before that, is there anything else that you feel to share?
I don't think so at this time.
Okay, let's ask a few final questions then. First one, what do you wish more people knew about you?
Mm, It's a tough one because I feel like I'm an open book. Uh, I mean, I feel like I just wish people knew how much I care and the empathy that I have for others, and that I want people to be happy. I think that's the biggest thing. People come into my life, and then like you have disagreements and people leave, and it always comes back that maybe I'm like a negative person because they ended up leaving or whatever. But at the end of the day, no matter what the relationship, how it ended, whatever happened, I do genuinely want people to be happy and living their best life.
What is your current motto or mantra?
Probably most the thing that comes to mind, especially in the light of Fred, is like live life to its fullest. I think that's the biggest thing I've started to do. Like I spend money like I never have. I don't have a lot of money, but I'm willing to just go and experience things and see the world and see things, because you never know how much time you have left on this earth. Time is like your life is not guaranteed. You never know what's going to happen. And with losing Fred, it really started to like set in my head that like I haven't done a lot and I have the ability to do more. So I'm going to start living life and doing things. So I think that's it. Live life to its fullest.
If you could tell everybody in the world one thing, what would it be?
I think probably one of the biggest things is just talk, use your voice. Don't keep it in. Like if you're feeling a certain way, tell people. Just be direct with people, let them know, because nobody can know how you're feeling if you don't tell them, and nobody can help you if they don't know how things impact you and how it makes you feel. So I think that's the biggest thing. Just use your voice.
And how can people get in touch with you if they want to connect?
The best way is through my Instagram, which is Charmed Trudy, like the TV show Charmed, in my name. And then also, if they want to connect with the Fred's Fighters page, they can do that and connect there for some uplifting, positive stuff as well.
Excellent. And those will be shared in the show notes.
Perfect.
Thank you so much, Trudy, for just shining your light and sharing your story in such an open and vulnerable way, because I couldn't agree more with what you said about in doing so, we're we're really freeing others as well, not just ourselves.
Thank you.
If you enjoyed this episode or found value in it, I invite you to like, leave a 5-star review, or share with a friend. And be sure to subscribe so you don't miss future episodes.